And the sending schools really don't lose.
They just lose those students, and if it prevents them from adding, let's say, a kindergarten or a first grade that's what they did in Brookfield, then they win all the way around from that standpoint.
Now, I know that the program started this year with 3 kindergartens, was it? And it constricts down to, is it 2 fourth grade?
This year we have two fourth grade next, and they decided not to open 5th grade this year because how many students would want to come for 1 year? So they didn't. So next year we have 2 5th grades. That will be moving up.
Will those 4th graders take all of
Yes. Well, the attrition rate's very low for us. We have, the openings. I think we lost 1 student this year to moving. Most probably will stay there. But that group, that cohort will move forward. What we don't know next year if we'll have enough students need to open 3 kindergartens. At this point, we're planning 2. The needs from the guests aren't as high as we wanted to be. We need about 44 guests next year to get into a good balance for this reimbursement. And we're still holding out. There still may be some possibilities of 2 or 3 of the other districts may take more seats to get us closer to 44.
I think part of my confusion is I see you now and into the future only looking for 5-year-olds. Is that wrong?
Well, let me say it this way. 5-year-olds, the kindergarten stay the whole year. It'd be nice to have replenished it every year. That's your feeder program. But if we have openings across the spectrum, K-5, there are some districts that, for example, may have some parents in 5th grade, some in 4th grade, and if there's an opening there, they'll take that seat. So it's whether or not the parents want to send their child here in 4th grade or 5th grade. That's the thing you can't answer, but they can come into it.
It sounds a little bit in Ridgefield. There was a parochial school, St. Mary's, that they had closed it. They weren't running the school, but there was an increased demand for that school, so they started with the younger grades, and they sort of built up. And then once you have the pipeline filled, it seems like
then it works.
It moves on like that.
And that's what we're looking at. Waterbury is another town that has a few magnet schools and had them for years. We've been over there to study them, the Maloney School. And, that business model, let's put it in that respect, takes a few years to build that cadre and take those fixed costs and have them paid. That all reduces then that cost. And that's what happens
if you opened up the entire population of the school to Danbury students, could you fill all the spots with Danbury students?
Instantly.
Okay. Yeah. So you have to ration those out by districts and
we're close to 1,000 parents.
Right. Remember I said we can't put more than 75% in this by agreement, by statute.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm wondering, especially for parents who are out there listening, the selection process itself, the lottery, are the applications available online? Do you do it in your town? Do you do it through the Danbury Board of Education? If you had, for instance, if you have a first grader from Newtown at the magnet school and the family has a kindergartner, is there any consideration given to siblings? I mean, what are the ins and outs of selection for the magnet school? What is done in the sending districts? What is done centrally? Are there any bonus points, for siblings or anything like that?
The way I don't have Bill chime in, but just on the process, it's posted on the website. We put out information. People download the application. We put applications at the school, at the preschools, and we do that. And we didn't have any problem people soliciting, getting
They
those.
found it.
Found them right away. We had people wanting to send them before the beginning, before it even opened. So that's how they apply it, and they start applying, and we give them the entire month to do it. Regarding the sibling one, there are rules. We have a professional that comes in and runs it. We do not run the lottery. It's done, we outsource it, so none of us participate in it except to say there are some dimensions in terms of what we're doing. And one of them is regarding the sibling. Having a sibling doesn't automatically allow them to go in, although we're very cognizant of family and family consolation. So they'll go on the list, and depending on how many people are asking for seats in that category the other youngsters in, if there's a chance of getting them in, we will attempt to put them in. but it's not an automatic that if John goes, now we have 2 sets of twins that did get in.
And the lottery just pulled
And
them.
the lottery
Two-
pulled them.
You see, that's why I don't have anything to do with the lottery. So I said, you got to be kidding me. But there are some, it's run by a gentleman that's run throughout Connecticut. So he really knows what he's doing. He creates these matrix. In fact, what we're going to do in here is we're going to lay out this matrix. Now they're in our 2nd year and see where we might have some openings and where parents have asked us to try to put them in there while we open up the other ones. But siblings can get in, but it's not an automatic.
It's a preference.
It's a preference.
If you have, if one child is in, the sibling goes to the head of the list, and then they're selected if there's an available opening at that
Level.
appropriate grade level. The other thing to mention is, we 2 things. One is we've had parents who have just delivered. It's amazing. My child is
Just-
2 months old. We're
Not at
interested-
the magnet school.
Definitely not at the magnet school. We've just delivered, and we're interested in the magnet school. Can we put our name in for the lottery? No. It's an
Wow.
annual lottery, as Sal mentioned. Secondly, folks think it's something like an auction, and you can pack the auditorium or the boardroom. I forgot the exact number of seconds. I think last time we ran the lottery, it's done by a computer. The fellow who ran it, Bill Oliver is his name, said, don't blink, because some
'Cause it's
parents came
done.
down. 4 seconds, I think, or 7, between that.
Wow.
And it was all done. We printed it out for
Interesting.
folks who were there who wanted to see it. And then instantaneous information.
So
And then
the-
they'll send out invites
Yep.
and see who will accept. When they don't accept, then we put in another group, and that's how we start filling it up.
in this case, do people actually want to physically come to the school and see it?
They haven't asked this year. I don't know about last.
Now, what we did was, we entertained tours. People want to go and take a peek.
At the school.
Yeah, we have a relatively rich website for the Magnus, where you can go and take a virtual tour of it. And then for the parents who actually, for the kids who are accepted, and we had a picnic this year, just an orientation picnic by grade level, or by cluster rather, to get parents and kids to come in, so they get a feel for the school, and then we get it up and running. But
This
right
might be
now,
an obvious question, but once they're in, right?
Yes.
You know, so kindergarten.
Well,
they're all-
that's interesting. Let's say
They're
it is,
guaranteed.
I'll tell you the difficulty. We have students that are in, and they move to Ridgefield.
Okay.
Let's say Ridgefield is not a participating district.
Okay.
They're not in.
Not yet, we might work something.
No, when I say Ridgefield, I could say any town that's not participating.
I understand.
Those youngsters cannot participate. That's where they'd have to go solicit and ask if they can
Come back.
participate and come back. And we've looked at different structures to accommodate parents. The district has. We've met with the State Department this year. Some parents were willing to drive and do other means of transportation. So it all depends on the flexibility that those sending districts would allow them. But the ultimate thing, as we talk about, you could have the scenario where, Gary's kids he's moved to Ridgefield and he's happy about sending them here. They come, but he switches jobs and no longer can he drop the kids off. That becomes the responsibility of the town. One bus, it's about $60,000 a bus.
Yeah.
So now what are you going to do? You can cab them. So that's the kind of thing you got to be thoughtful and mindful of, and that transportation is a problem in this whole concept.
Do you actually use cabs in some
We
cases?
haven't, no, but there, that's not
You have
impossible.
a bus coming from Brookfield every
We
day,
have a
for
bus.
example?
We have. See, that's the thing. If you have a bus coming from Brookfield, you got to pay one bus. There's 66 passengers.
Yeah.
I think he had what?
John
15. John had
15.
15.
He was able to have
said,
15 more in
"Oh,
one day."
15 more,
Because
and they
it's not
say
free for a bus.
the bus is the same thing,
Yeah.
So and that's the kind of thing. But if 2 kids were to move into Ridgefield and you allow them to come, and you could see how it could create some issues. So that's the thing that they got to be mindful of.
I just want to go back to Marty's first question. Once you're in the magnet, you're in.
Yeah, once you're in.
There's not an annual lottery to see if you stay in.
Yeah.
That becomes your home
Because
school.
when I was looking into in other places, I'm sure you realize, but there's specialty schools, magnet school for the performing
Technology,
arts, a magnet
performing.
school for art, and that seems to introduce even more competitiveness, and it's at a higher rate. So this is just sort of a
Open enrollment.
open enrollment.
Open enrollment. It's
strictly
not
on the lottery.
selective. We went and visited a school in Boston, which was what was it called, School of the Arts?
The School of the Performing Arts. yeah.
Performing. The only thing is, it was in the shadow of some ghastly play. What was the name of the place? Was it Boston, the Red Sox? Was it?
I knew it was coming. Yankees.
It's right,
Reds.
right across the street from the Red Sox Stadium.
Is that
In
right?
fact, we were looking out the window, right to center field.
Oh, wow.
But they have two schools and this one factory they converted.
So
And
there's
one was-
probably, like, on any given Sunday afternoon or summer afternoon, there could be some unsavory types there.
Absolutely.
Can we edit this
Shelter
part
is
out?
good.
That's what I keep
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
you.
yeah.
But that school is a
Now, if you were
performing
supposed
arts.
to open one in the Bronx, that would be perfect, because,
There'll be a new one.
no, that would be good.
But they go there and they have auditions, and it's very competitive.
Competitive.
And after 2 years, you're not at a certain level, you leave.
Yeah.
We don't, there are those types, and then there's one there that's called social justice. Kids apply, it's not as rigorous to get in, they stay the 4 years. So they differ within the same towns sometimes.
So is there a minimum number that a sending district can ask for? I mean, I see the number 15 used over and over and over again.
Well, I think it depends on how many they want to send. For example, if we have 2 kindergartens open, let's say Richfield says, you know what, we want to send you 22 kids, I can say, you know what, we have 1 kindergarten, we'll open up and we can put them all in kindergarten. We have the space. Conversely, if we didn't have the space,
that I think
well,
would
that's
be
the other
attractive
thing.
to a lot
They'd
of
be tracked.
residents.
Newtown came in for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine, yeah.
And we're not losing anyone, which is the interesting.
But the sending district has absolutely no say-so over the allotment. They can't say to you, we want these teachers' children to be.
Oh, no. There's an advisory board. All of these are our members. We sit and talk about policies and procedures. We sat down and looked at our enrollment and said, here's where we can have openings. We have the assignment of the teachers and all of the rest. We evaluate the teachers. There are teachers.
It's our school.
I hate to even, touch on this, but, one of the goals of the school is diversity. Is that factored in? Trying to
Not through the
maximize
lottery.
diversity?
Not through the law.
It's illegal for us to
It's
do.
illegal.
Yeah. So,
It's not. Well, as
but
I
it's
said
just
before,
by nature of the population.
by nature of the net,
Danbury.
That's not a problem.
it's not a problem.
Okay. And then I'll have some more questions about the peace curriculum. It really intrigues me. I mean, it sounds, if you want to look at it, one is sort of peace interpersonally with kids on the playground, no bullying, let's get along, that kind of thing. Did they expand that with, I don't know.
We're looking for opportunities.
Road trips to the
Well, that's one thing that we're
United
looking at.
Nations and things like
We're
that.
looking at, we have contact that's going to be going on with the United Nations.
'Cause
That's as one thing.
The one-
I don't know if she has some others. Let me just ask.
We have the United Nations. We've been, in part, recognized by the Matan Institute for the work we've done. Matan, one of the Secretary Generals of the United Nations.
Okay.
And there's a connection there. We're partnering with Western Connecticut State University, WestCon, and they have the affiliation with the Smithsonian, so there's a partnership there. We have Roots and Shoots with the Jane Goodall Institute, primate studies, so
Yeah.
we have a partnership there as well. So we're partnering with a school in Puerto Rico, an elementary school in Puerto Rico.
Oh.
So there's another connection that we have. So we're reaching out across the globe to try and create these connections. So it's think globally, act locally. So right there on the playground, we're acting locally. The idea of partnering with Western Connecticut, their doctoral program is in instructional leadership. Their students will come in and start working in our classrooms on instructional leadership projects with an international studies theme. So we're really, it's small and it's very large at the same time.
Yeah. And the one example that I heard of, I guess they've been doing it for a long time, is they'll have summer camps where they'll have Palestinian children and children of Israelis. That they'll take them out, it's paid for, it's kind of one of these fresh air sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you take the kids and you give them, give them
Piece
2
of
weeks at
yeah.
Camp Waka Waka, canoeing around and wherever, and they learn from
They
that.
build bridges.
Yeah, because and
We talk about building bridges, not building walls. And that's a
Yeah.
key piece of it. And kids forget the bad stuff
Yeah.
because their natural way of being is to be at peace. I mean,
it's true. It's true.
why is peace important is one of our key questions. How does one perpetuate peace? What is peace? How does one live a peaceful life? And what does one bring to, how does one bring peace to others? That's our second grade curriculum.
Wow.
So those are very powerful adult questions
Yeah.
that are brought down to a young level. And then we ask kids to get involved with those kinds of very dicey questions, and then look globally as they start to answer these.
Yeah.
And then it's thematic, so we just weave it throughout all of the other content areas. Science, we might plant a peace garden.
Huh.
And the different colored flowers represent, they might be the flower that's indigenous to a particular country
Yeah.
or a culture. So we'll bring a tulip in from the Netherlands, and we'll plant that and say that represents that part of the world. What represents, crocus may be in there for us because it's, that time of year.
Now, I hate to raise this horrible issue, but are these poor children in this wonderful magnet school going to be subject to all the requirements of standardized testing and no child left behind and all that other stuff?
All those regulations stand.
They apply.
What are your expectations about that for this particular school?
Specifically for NCLB?
Well, for standardized testing, do you think do we have 8 elementary schools? I've forgotten.
14.
Well, we have 14.
Elementary schools? Oh, my
We have 18 total,
goodness.
14 elementary with the new magnet school.
It's the same core program that we have in all the other 13 schools. It's the same conceptual framework that we use. We have a district enhancement plan over on the other wall. There's a data array that shows all the schools and all the outcome data.
So the students will do very well and students will do less well. It will be.
What happens in every one of our schools, you'll find this in Ridgefield, outstanding school system, and in every other school system, you'll have kids who are just flourishing, you'll have kids in the middle of the road and kids who are struggling. And that's what we'll find in any school.
So
Because
it's not
it is not a highly selective school.
so it's
Exactly.
not the silver
It's
bullet
ref-
for
it's-
We
achievement.
haven't skimmed the creme de la creme. No, it's not about that.
We didn't skim, that's correct. Those kids are performing like as if they're in the regular school system.
That's why I went back, Marnie, and pushed a little bit about it's our core curriculum. They're
Yeah.
just regular kids that go to this school.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested. Now, how many years has this been going on? Is this the maiden
It's
year?
only since
First
open
year.
So there isn't
September.
really a backlog of
No.
data that you can look at, but I would be interested in seeing, generally speaking, I realize you have some, gold medal, bronze medal, silver medal, but generally speaking, do they test better? Do they, is there?
Not from what we've seen so far.
But you
haven't had them long enough. I don't think
Not
it would
on
grade a
standardized tests.
school.
We've
Yeah.
tested internally with our own assessment instruments,
Yeah.
and kids are just doing very well. It's an exciting place to be. Kids tend to do well. There's a saying, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's a very caring environment, and that pulls kids along.
Yeah.
All kids. We don't track. It's a heterogeneous concept. We treat each kid equally, and then we differentiate based on that youngster's individual needs to the greatest extent possible. So we believe our kids will do very well, but we can show you many cases around the city where other kids who don't have the magnet school aura doing very well also.
I know that the achievement gap between economically disadvantaged students and advantaged students, people have been talking about how we're going to close that gap. And Chef versus O'Neill doesn't directly do that, but I think you may see in your magnet school that acts toward closing an achievement gap. If we have students who are economically disadvantaged from Danbury attending, they're going to flourish. Will it have
Yeah.
maybe that kind of effect?
Go ahead.
Are you hoping?
Well, I think so. Go ahead, Bill.
We've looked at the achievement gap is almost a misnomer. It's the achievement gaps. So
Number of
there's the
areas.
racial gap, there's the gender gap. The socioeconomic gap is the most powerful in a destructive way. But to put it into perspective, people say, why is that? Is there something wrong with a poor kid that he or she can't learn as well as an affluent youngster, a youngster who comes from an affluent home? Not at all. Their capabilities are either equal, in some cases they're in favor of one or the other, just because of the way that youngsters are hardwired. The difference with the socioeconomic gap, there's ample research out there that says kids from economically challenged families come to kindergarten, this sounds like a big number, with a 3,000-word vocabulary. Not very fluid with it, but they understand, they have access to 3,000 words. Kids from moderate income families, same day, same class, come to school with a 5,000-word vocabulary on average. And kids from very affluent families come to the same school on the same day in the same classroom with 7,000 to 10,000 words. Day one of their first day of school,
The gap is
The
there.
the gap is there.
in their experience before they got there.
What may change as a result of the magnet school, the international flavor coming in might be enough to broaden what the term we use in education is schema, their background experiences. It's almost like supersizing them. They're being accelerated in a sense because they do have access. There is a difference at the magnet school. This international theme coupled with the peace curriculum is a different piece. It does attract, and at the same time, it may help mitigate against that achievement gap in terms of acquisition to language, acquisition to experiences that poor youngsters might never have compared to more affluent youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, the achievement gap it sounds like it might not be the parent's paycheck necessarily, or the economic status of the parent, but the involvement of the parent and the interest that the parent shows. Now, I know we're on a thin ice here because you can't, we all love our kids, but I
The
think
biggest cut area is economics.
economics.
That SES, that is
Yeah.
across racial lines. If you're white with a low SES, and I'm Hispanic with low SES, and I'm black with SES, I'm Italian with low SES, we're going to achieve pretty much that way, except for if you're black or if you're Hispanic and you're coming from a wealthy home, you're going to achieve with the wealthy white, and you're going to do it.
Well, my theory would be that, and you would know better than me, but to go beyond those numbers, it's just that the parents have more time. They're not trying, they have more time for their children. They have more affluence. They have more discretionary income. Is that
Well, I mean, I
wrong,
could
or-
look at some families that are, high SES and they're never home. Dad's working,
That's
mom's
true.
has a career, so I don't know that. It's the experiences, it's that
The
schema,
books.
it's the
Yes.
books, it's the richness of the
Reading.
environment. That time you
Exposure to
spend together
things.
may be short, but we're reading the newspaper. Dad's reading the newspaper. I begin reading the newspaper. I'm not just watching that TV set. There are a lot of things that are going on, and that is the big difference. We just came from a meeting with early childhood, is to create experiences before they get to kindergarten so that we can start leveling the playing field, is what they call it, with all these experiences. SES matters big time. It's a matter of, if you look at schools that have poverty
SES socio
Economic status.
status?
Let me put that in
SES.
perspective.
Okay, just sorry, I get the.
We did a little survey some years back about how many books or print materials you have in your home.
That's what I was going to do.
We asked kids just to go around and with a
And
piece of
count.
paper, 1, 2, 3, 4. We had one youngster who came in, 1,000, stopped at 1,000, said, we have 1,000 books. They're all over the place. It's a mess, blah, blah, blah. We have newspapers, we have magazines, we had another youngster who came in who found a Bible and a cookbook. That was it. There were no magazines, there's no newspaper. It's not, somebody might, it's misconception, but somebody might say, well, maybe they're not English speaking, so they didn't have materials in their native language. This was a youngster who grew up in an English-speaking family.
Yeah.
The family born and bred here in the United States. They were struggling to put food on the table. They were struggling to get clothing. So what they ended up doing was they put their money where their mouth is
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Literally,
make sure they had literally and print materials and things like that, so that were just not evident. So the schema, the background experiences, the idea of I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch Dad read, and I'm going to pick up something, even
model
if
the
I'm
behavior.
reading it
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
I'm going to model. I'm going to pretend to read and make up the words, and eventually I'll say, oh, a term we call concepts of print. What's the technology of a book?
Yeah.
I'll learn that. And then Dad turns around and says, what was the best part of what you read? What do you like the best? I'll tell you what the best part of the book I read was. And they start having conversations. In the absence of that, those conversations don't take place, and that gap starts.
See, and I think at the
widening.
magnet school, you're going to have families and parents that have been reading to their kids as a youngster, have been intimately involved
We
with
do.
their education from the word go. You talk about the lady that just gave birth that wants her on the waiting list. And so I think you're way ahead of the game just by the participation of the parents in the child's education. They just seem to be more
Youngster A
motivated
brings
than-
youngster B along.
Yeah.
Youngster B doesn't understand a word that the teacher said, a concept that the teacher mentioned. Youngster B will lean over and go, this is what they did.
Yeah.
And, oh, I get it.
it's funny because it does get down to the question of nature versus nurture. And, are some kids just by nature more intelligent? Or is it's just completely, contingent on how you're nurtured, how you're brought into the world? And this is not a good example.
That's another program.
Yeah, I know, but well.
Well, the research is a little different now than that. There is.
Because you would see me, it's across the board,
Well, I will tell
low
you,
SES.
we're all wired for a certain amount of ability that way. It's utilizing that ability. And there's clear research coming out of Harvard and Cambridge and places where because of new technology of MRIs, they can look how brain structure works. And if brain structure works with dendrites and connections, someone says if you can get dendrite to dendrite making connections, kids will learn.
Okay.
You can really gain in your ability and your intelligence. That's why we feel we're always, learning. Continuous learning, and we can build that intelligence.
I would go along with the Harvard and Cambridge guys because I think they come wired differently from the factory, and I'm just referring to my 3 children because we loved each kid the same. We modeled reading in front of them the same. We got more world books, and they saw Dad read the paper, all the same. And yet the 3 of them
Are all different.
they are just as different as the day is long.
But I'll bet you Sal's Yankee tickets that each one of those kids has his own inherent set of gifts, or her.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely. Yeah. One is certainly. Well, I don't get into my kids. It's a very boring subject, but it's absolutely true. One has a gift for language and has gone to Japan and loves it over there, and the other is just sort of a run-of-the-mill studious. I'm going to get on the honor roll student, and then the other one, we're not sure what he's doing. It's just.
Well, not to change the subject,
Yeah.
we're running short on time, but Marty and I and the other panelists who come on this program are like trying to promote public access television, and we like the fact that you were both able to come on and talk tonight about the magnet school. And I kind of wanted to toss out to you this idea, and I know Marty can chime in. How would you feel about Board of Education meetings being televised so that people in Danbury could tune in to your meetings? I know that there are board members who don't like that idea.
Yeah, I think it's a board decision. Personally, my orientation at Evanston, all of our board meetings were televised. It's not, to me, a big thing, but at times I think the fear factor of people pontificating in front of and acting, I think that goes away with time. You're just doing the business of the board. So it depends on what the board wants to do with that. I don't see it as problematic. I think it's better to have people part of the process than not of the process. And if they can sit and they want to sit there and listen to a board meeting for 3 hours, and that's what they like to do, I think that I don't have a problem with that. But that's a board kind of a decision.
And how would you describe your website? Can people find out when meetings are? Can they see an agenda for a board meeting?
That's a good question. I don't know if the agendas are posted. They may be posted.
Yeah,
I'd have to
actually, I'm
check.
not sure either. They definitely have the calendar of when the meetings are.
When the meetings are,
And if they're not posted, thank you, because we will post them. It's for the viewers, it's www.danbury.k12.ct.us.
Oh my gosh.
Or just go to Danbury Schools, Google it, and you'll see Danbury website main page, and just highlight that and you'll get it.
Marty, what do they do in Ridgefield with public access?
Yeah, they had in the past. You mentioned Tiger TV. They have had it in the past, and it's only been in the past few recent years that they haven't.
But are your selectmen's meetings covered?
Yeah, the selectmen's meetings are covered.
Board of Education?
Board of Education is not, but Ivan is participating in making that a reality, so it will be back on the air, such as it is. But the Board of Selectmen meeting, and also a lot of special town meetings. The town meetings tend to be televised. We had it through the high school with Tiger Television, and I'd like to see that reinstituted because I think it's great. I mean, the average homeowner is working hard all day. They get home through traffic, and they're finally starting to have a little dinner. And the last thing they want to do is go out to yet another meeting that night. But if they have it through Comcast cable or something like that and they can watch it, I think it's a good thing.
And they
I
tape
think
it,
it's a good thing.
sure, watch it later.
Yeah, especially
They
if
could
there's,
TiVo it, right?
especially if there's something that comes up, like redistricting of schools, or a hot button item that they'll want to see.
Right.
If they can access it through their television, I think it's a good thing.